Greg Louganis. Now, if you watched sports back in the 80s, that name, it meant diving perfection. But the real story, the one behind all those gold medals, it's about so much more. We're talking about incredible pressure, a huge secret, and a kind of resilience you just can't imagine. And it all comes down to one dive. A dive that changed absolutely everything.
So, to really get into this story, we've got to start with this question right here. Because, this is a question he had to answer, and not in private. He had to answer it in front of the whole world at the absolute peak of his career during the 1988 Seoul Olympics.
All right, let's set the scene. It's Seoul, 1988. Greg Louganis, he's the undisputed king of the diving world. I mean, everybody, the judges, the fans watching at home, they're all expecting one thing and one thing only from him. Absolute, total perfection. Okay, so this whole thing, it happened in a split second. But man, the impact lasted for years. Louganis launches into the air. He's doing a reverse 2.5 somersault pike, a dive he's probably done 1,000 times, right? But this time, something's just off. On the way down, his head hits the board. You can almost hear that sickening thud echoing through the place. He crashes into the water, gets a concussion, but then somehow he heroically pulls himself out, gets stitched up, and actually completes the round. I mean, it was just an unbelievable act of pure heroism. And look, to really get why that moment was so shocking and why his comeback was so legendary, you have to understand just how dominant this guy was. We're not talking about just any diver. This was like the Michael Jordan of the diving board. No exaggeration. I mean, his dominance was just absolute. Take a look at this. We've got double gold medals at the '84 Olympics in LA, double golds at the '82 and '86 World Champs, and yeah, get this, even after hitting his head, he still goes on to win double golds in Seoul in '88. His career was just this incredible waterfall of victories. And this number, right here, this just says it all. A perfect 10. Back at the 1982 World Championships, he became the very first diver ever in a major international competition to get a perfect 10 from all 7 judges. So you see, the man wasn't just winning, he was literally redefining what was even possible in the sport. But here's the thing. Behind all that public perfection, behind every single gold medal and every perfect score, he was fighting this huge private battle. He was holding on to a secret that, once it came out, would completely change how we see that moment at the '88 Olympics. This timeline, wow, it just lays out the insane weight he was carrying. Just 6 months, before he's on that diving board in Seoul, Greg Louganis is diagnosed as HIV positive. So think about that. When he hit his head, when he bled into that pool, he was carrying a secret that he thought could destroy everything. Not just his career, his entire life. And you really have to remember what it was like back then. This was the late '80s, right at the height of the AIDS crisis. The fear, the misinformation, it was everywhere. An HIV diagnosis, well, for many people, that was seen as a death sentence, and the stigma was just overwhelming. So keeping this a secret, it wasn't just about privacy. For him, it felt like a matter of survival. So years go by. It wasn't until 1995 that Louganis finally felt he could share his story. He came out as gay and revealed his HIV status. And the world, the same world that had cheered him on as a hero, its reaction was, well, complicated, and in many ways, pretty cruel. It was this crazy mix of support and just vicious backlash. Talk about whiplash. The public reaction was just night and day. On one hand, you had the athlete, this celebrated icon, right? ABC's Athlete of the Year, a symbol of American excellence. But then after he told his truth, this other identity was forced on him, the pariah. His big endorsements, like Speedo, gone. He got hammered with criticism for competing, and suddenly everyone was replaying that moment, the one where he bled into the pool. But now they were seeing it through this lens of fear. But here's the crucial point, and it's so important. That fear, it was not based on science at all. This quote here from John Ward at the CDC, it makes it crystal clear. He explained the risk was basically zero. The pool water would dilute any blood instantly, and the chlorine in the pool would kill the virus anyway. There was just no danger to the other divers. The public shaming he went through, it was all based on prejudice, not on facts. But Greg Louganis' story doesn't end with a backlash. Not even close. In fact, you could argue that his greatest victories, they came long after he stopped diving.
They came when he took back his own story and started this whole new life as an advocate.
And look at everything he's done since. His life became so incredibly rich and full. He became this powerful voice for HIV/AIDS awareness and a huge activist for LGBTQ+ rights. He wrote a best-selling book, Breaking the Surface. He coached a new generation of Olympic divers. And, get this, he even got into competitive dog agility. He just flat out refused to be defined by one moment, or one dive, or one diagnosis. And you know what? Eventually, the public came around. Perception finally caught up with his courage. In 2016, decades after it should have happened, a petition went around and Greg Louganis finally got his face on the Wheaties box. And that was so much more than a picture on a cereal box. It was this huge symbolic moment of acceptance, kind of like a long overdue apology from a culture that had finally learned and grown. So yeah, his athletic perfection was undeniable. I mean, it's literally immortalized on this postage stamp from Azerbaijan back in '96. But his real legacy, his true legacy, it's so much more complicated and honestly, so much more powerful than any single perfect dive. And all of this brings us right back to where we started, back to that first question, but now it has so much more weight to it. Greg Louganis' story really forces us to ask ourselves, what do we actually value more? Is it the flawless victory, the perfect 10, or is it the courage it takes to get back on the board after you've hit your head? And maybe the even greater courage it takes to live your truth, even when the world isn't ready to hear it?